what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey, everybody. How are you all? It's so good to see you. I'm so excited about this show. I've missed having Steve on. He's been so busy. Hey, Tech Death. How are you, my dear? So good to see you, everybody. My intro music is by Tech Death Hippie. He's an amazing artist. Please make sure you check out his YouTube channel and subscribe to his music. He is amazing. Hi, John. How are you? Hey, Lisa. Good to see you. Hey, Boston. Hey, Shadowbox. How are you? I hope the move is going well. Been thinking about you. Hi, Julianne. Hey, Paris. How are you, my dear? Hey, Jumpin' Jack Flash. Good to see you. Hi, True Cram Fangirl. How are you? Hey, Jamie. Good to see you. Hi, Dandy Lioness. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Carol. Good to have you with us. Oh, painting and moving all day? That does not sound like fun. Jamie, thank you. Yeah, this is Tech Death's channel. He dropped it in the chat. So for those of you that aren't subscribed, head on over there, please. Hey, Bamison, how are you? Welcome, welcome. Hey, Danger Dave, how are you? Purdue, my friend, how are you? Big hugs. I hope you are well. Hey, Southern Gal True Crime. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Hey, Love Pony, or I'm sorry, Lone Pony. Thank you so much. Hi, Sees Through. Thanks, Purdue. I'm feeling amazing. Thank you, thank you. Hey, Lynn. Good to have you here. Hi, Salty Beach. Thank you. Steve's amazing. He just, and so is Mrs. Steve. They both are. This chat is lit, and we haven't even started yet. Hey, Melissa, how are you? It's so good to have all of you with me tonight. I'm looking forward to this live stream. I've been looking forward to it for a while. Yeah, Southern Gal, I'm going to have to catch that one on the replay. I was really busy and I didn't get a chance to check in for it for the live, but I definitely will watch the replay. He has great things to say about you, so I'll be checking out your channel. Hey, Karen. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you guys all here with us tonight. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of topics, but we're going to talk about Delphi. Obviously, there's been some stuff that's gone on with Delphi, and the Supreme Court weighed in. So we're going to talk about that. I want to catch up with Steve on some of his travels, some of the stuff that he's been up to. I want to talk to him a little bit about Idaho and the Brian Kohberger case. And so, yeah, we're gonna just chat tonight. It's nothing super formal, but Steve and I always do really well together, back and forth. So I know it will be absolutely wonderful. And without further ado, I think he has his coffee. I always hate the fact that I go right after him and he doesn't get a chance to breathe because he has to come in here and be with me. But I want to give him a chance to get a cup of coffee and catch his breath before he comes in. But we're going to welcome him, everyone. Please say hello to Steve from True Crime Web, my good friend.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Did you by any chance get, while I've got you right here in front of me, did you get a message today from somebody that commented about the chair on my community post, said her mom has that same chair in her kitchen?
Is that the one from Texas?
I don't know where she's from. I told her to contact you.
Okay, that may be that one. I don't know, but I've had it's absolutely amazing. I reached out to several creators today, trying to get the message out. For the fact I've looked at thousands of chairs, and on some of the work I do when I work these cases, you try to be as accurate as you can, and you need exact dimensions of certain chairs and the way they're put together. And I couldn't find the chair, but I think I found people sent me stuff from of where the chairs were manufactured in Russia, Malaysia, and as I said in my show earlier, that that chair is quite popular in Canada.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, down to the point, it's the exact 7 spindles and all of that, and the same scroll work. And so that's good news. That if I had to, I can go to Canada. But we've got some in Texas. Now hopefully I'll in the next day or two, I'll get someone notify me that it's even closer than Texas. But I'm
She
trying to
said
get
that
it.
it was in her mom's kitchen and she didn't know if her mom would part with it or not. And I said, well, he might just need to borrow it. I didn't know what
That's
you were
what
going to do with it.
and I sent a message to at least one person tonight discussing that could I borrow it, rent it, steal it,
Right.
whatever it
That's what I
takes.
was like. Can you just have it for a little while? I didn't think you were going to burn it. And I didn't
Oh
think
no,
you
I'm
were
not
going to
going to burn it. And
I didn't think you were going to beat it up or anything. So
oh no, 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 no. I just need it for some displays and recreating certain things with mannequins and measurements, and getting because in the actual crime scene images that I have, there's certain defects and that had occurred at the crime scene itself. And the only way I can get the measurements for those defects, because in the CSI world of when you see certain forces applied to chairs and there's certain things that get broke or certain defects occur to those wood structures, that those measurements are critical. And that's how come I need that chair. And one
Dave
that has
says,
the same
Dave
type
says,
of spindles and stuff.
just don't burn down the kitchen again.
You start one kitchen fire with groceries and you never live it down.
You never live it down. It's sad, isn't it? The things that people remember.
Yeah. One small kitchen fire with groceries.
I was just
I mean,
going
that
to
could
say
have
one.
happened to
It was
anybody.
just a tiny one.
Yeah, I mean, burn up some coffee mate and some cheese crackers. But
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, it was funny because when I was watching your live when you were talking about the chair, I was looking into my dining room where my table is, and I have a chair like that. I mean, it has 7 spindles, but my backs are a little bit higher. There's a lot more ornate crafting, or not crafting, but carving into the back of the upper back. And it doesn't have that thing in the middle that you were looking
yeah,
for.
yeah.
That's exactly like that. Mine's a lot wider than that one. So
Mhm.
it's not exact, but I was like, well, it's kind of close. I mean, as far as the design of the chair, it's exact. It's got those little curved things that attach the back to the seat.
Mhm.
It's got all that. I mean, it's very antique because it
Yeah,
reminds me of the chairs that my grandmother had
yeah.
back in the
Mrs.
day.
Steve was walking through the house the other day, and I had overturned the living room area and turned it into a crime scene. And so she comes walking through, and she looks over there, and just her shaking her head and and just staring at me and saying, "What did I miss?"
You crack me up because living with you has to be hilarious because with your criminal mind, with you constantly thinking crime scene and recreation and evidence collection, I wouldn't want to be a grandchild of yours that would get in trouble. You'd be able to figure it out like that.
Well, the purpose of it is that I'm fortunate enough and blessed enough that I can go out there and do this. And in my, when these families reach out to you, and you've been reached out by families, and
Yes.
you want to have an impact, you want
Yes.
to make sure their story is looked at, and try to get them questions or the questions that they have answered. And it's,
Most
it
definitely.
takes you have to put the effort forward to that. And I've seen a lot of families affected that have never ever had their questions answered, and there's far too many of those families out there.
And you're right, and it's sad because um, there are so many cases everywhere you look and everywhere you turn. There are missing people or cases of murdered people that have not been solved. Um, and we're talking for years and years. And we're not talking about anything that's really recent. We're talking about people have been waiting over 25 years or more sometimes in these cases to have them solved. And you know how I feel about you, but I can't say enough about how lucky our community has been that you came on the scene when you did, because I think you've done an amazing amount of work in a very short amount of time, from when your
Thank you.
channel started to where you are now. And
It's very
hey, Frank
kind of you.
Meister, good to
Appreciate
see
it.
you. And you, like I said, you have definitely made an impact. And for all of us who know that kind of impact that you've made, if we feel that way, I can only imagine how the families that you're helping feel about you. So we already know how Ruckus feels about you, but
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Poor old Ruckus. I feel sorry for him. He, he's taking a nap now, I'm sure, somewhere. Because he's my dog stays awake longer and more than Ruckus does in the daytime. I've never seen anybody constantly naps.
is he
Constantly naps.
was he a night cop? Do you know? I mean, did he work nights like you did?
I don't know. I know that I don't know what his shift was. He worked both road. I think he worked road in Florida, and then he did correctional. And I don't know what his time. I know that he's an early riser, so I would expect that more than likely he worked the day shifts
Well, we
because he
know
gets
that
up
he's a
extremely early.
musician and he loves to play, and sing and dance and do all that stuff. And most of that stuff happens at night. So I'm thinking he's a night owl, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're the night owl and he's in bed. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You'd know
But
more than I would about
I
that
saw
because you guys.
Frank Master in here,
Yep.
Master, and he sent me a chair out of Canada. And like I said, I had some others send me some pictures out of Canada also. And so those chairs, and like I said, I want to thank all the creators that sent me stuff and the communities from those creators. And as the information gets, hopefully I can find this exact chair closer. But if not, I've got at least one in Texas that I may get access to.
I was just going to say, are you heading to Texas anytime soon?
I spoke to Larry last week, and I think he's trying to get out there in December. I don't know if I'll be able to make it by then, but I do have plans of getting out there. We've got to get Carolyn, a scientist that is on part of our team that went out there on the search, and get her report and findings turned over to law enforcement because she was able to go in there at electrical resistivity imaging, and she has a fantastic report of some anomalies or a specific area that we were looking at that has an anomaly there that is unidentified. And so law enforcement needs that, and whatever they do with that information, hopefully it has an impact and there's something there, hopefully. But we'll turn it over to law enforcement and let them, that's all we can do.
Right.
We do our part and then we forward it on.
So you've been traveling around a lot, and in the midst of all of that, you had Thanksgiving, you had a new grandbaby born. You had a lot going on this fall, buddy.
Yes, I think last week or whenever I got back, I ain't got no idea. As after I drove back up from Florida and I left Georgia, I think I put about close to 2,500 miles on in about 6 days, and which is about average when I'm on the road, because I drive for extended, if it takes 12, 14 hours, I drive 12, 14 hours. For the fact that I have to get there. And I wish that I could just, live on the road. But Mrs. Steve, we have certain things that we have to do, and we still, that at some point in the future, hopefully we'll be able to travel more and have even a greater impact. And whereas we don't have our work schedules that we have to work around.
Right. And you could take her with you, because she would be like, I mean, I just can see her being like right on point and helping you in so many ways. Yeah.
If y'all know, if everyone knew how much that she does behind the scenes, you would see that I'm pretty well. This is it. I sat in front of the True Crime Web.
She's amazing lady, and I'm so happy for both of you that you have your new grandbaby to enjoy this holiday. What a blessing. Um, uh, I thought tonight that we would talk about the first thing is what's going on in Delphi with the Supreme Court ruling that came out, and I want your take on it because I always like your opinion because it's to me it's just very level-headed, straightforward, and you leave the door open for things,
Mhm.
which is fine, but at the same time, you don't discount the evidence.
Yeah.
So for that reason, you and I agree on so many different things, but I just kind of wonder how you feel about, first of all, the fact that they denied um, the writ of mandamus and prohibition. What were you surprised by that? Do you want to speak to that?
Now that was, s- I know that they talked about some of the filings and these that certain court documents to remain sealed and stuff.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and so they said, okay, that's a no go. We're that they believe that has been addressed properly, from my understanding.
Yes. Yes, mine
And
too. And I think she addressed it that November, whatever the last hearing was, where they were all in court together, and she, or her order or whatever it was that she did to the clerk of Carroll County, where she told
well,
them to release those documents and stuff. She basically took care of it, but they went ahead and filed this motion with the Supreme Court, and I think the Supreme Court was kind of like, nope, this is done deal.
okay. Well, and now with that same thought process, that the Supreme Court said that we're going to have a hearing on this section, that we're going to look at it more as far as the attorneys.
Yes.
And and there's only really, from my standpoint, the that there has to be a reason for that. That they want to absolutely make it clear and have a full understanding for the fact that if it does have an impact on his ability to defend himself, it shouldn't ever get to that. But it's also that there may be a possibility that there is some type of um, opportunity that the court wants to absolutely clear up if there's any possibility of a window being opening. They're going to close it with this case. That they're going to set a precedent,
One
and
of the
this is
things, yeah, I agree with you. And one of the things that I found really eye-opening, and I'm not sure how many people caught this, but in the denial of the motion for the writ, um, at the very end, the Supreme Court said, this disposition is final.
Mhm.
There will be no petitions for rehearing or motions to reconsider. So that's one thing people need to realize. They're the last voice. So
Yeah,
when the Supreme Court says this is how it's going to be, this is how it's going to be.
yeah. That's for Indiana. Now, if they come up
Right.
with some other and take it even higher, which um, who knows? But yes, for Indiana, it's solved. It's done deal. The
Yep.
but on the other, like I said, they're about to do something, and it will ultimately, regardless, their finding and their ruling will be just as standing. This is the final say, guys. Good or bad, this is what. But I think that there's been so much public opinion about this that they're going to clarify a lot of issues and make sure that um, and it is a good that we're able to see our court systems work. That there's nothing that can occur, because you can look in the citations in the writ and in the filings, and they'll tell you that there's that similar opinions and similar incidents have occurred in the history of the court system. You're not going to surprise the court system. Now, you may find a new interpretation and little nuances here and there, but you're not going to shock the court system. And the
Right.
Supreme Court, you most certainly are not going to shock. And they're going to be able to answer it, and it'll be final.
Right. And so January 18th is the court date that they've set for the Supreme Court to meet in Indianapolis to hear this hearing on the reinstatement of the attorneys and the removal of the judge. And I think that is, I actually, in a lot of ways, I was a little surprised by it, but not completely, because of the high profile nature of this case and how far reaching it is. I honestly think they didn't really have a choice. They needed to at least hear this case as far as this part, or there would have been a backlash, because there's so many people out there that are right now that are vocal on social media anyway, that feel that she was completely in the wrong in what she did. I don't agree with that. I think she handled it very well, in my opinion, as best that she could with what she was dealt. She didn't create this problem. She's not the one who did all of these things. The attorneys did, and they're the ones who let it happen. She's like, the gatekeeper, or, she's the referee on the sidelines that has to keep the game going and make sure that the rules and everything's being followed, the letter of the law, so to speak. And I just think there's a lot of people out there that don't know how our legal system works.
Yeah.
And
Well,
how the process, I mean, we can have so many motions and so many things happen in these cases. That's why it can take years for them to get to trial.
yeah. And, like I said, from my standpoint, I've worked with attorneys, and the prosecutors, of course, they're attorneys and things. And it's absolutely amazing to see these attorneys hash it out and argue their points, and because there's two sides of every story. Do I fault that we have these attorneys that will take any case to court? No, I mean, it's something that's guaranteed within the Constitution. And I've sat there and had these attorneys absolutely attack you on the stand, but then at the end of the day, it's nothing personal. It's that they're just trying to create and make sure that every perspective, every stone, no stone is left unturned, and is any other possibilities possible. And that's what they're going to do with the Richard Allen case, regardless who the defense attorneys are. They're going to absolutely attack the state's case, and rightly so, for the fact that only through those attacks on the state case will we get to the truth.
Yep. Gail Hurd, thank you so much for your super sticker. I so appreciate it. You are always here for the channel, and I so appreciate it. Frank Meister announced he's going to be at the hearing on January 18th, and I can't wait to hear his take on how that all goes. I'm so glad he'll be there for us and be our eyes and ears while it's going on.
I heard there's going to be a process. It's almost like that you're assigned a ticket, and they draw names, and there's only a limited number of people.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be limited, because I don't think they have a huge gallery. At least they don't in Illinois. In our Supreme Court, there's not a huge gallery. So,
yeah, I think it was something like someone that said that they had been before, and it's like 50.
Yeah, I think it's small. Welcome, Cynthia Gaines. Thank you so much for becoming a member. I so appreciate it. Welcome. We really love having you. Joan says, I really love the camaraderie that has developed along our favorite creators. Thank you, Kristen. First noticed this last year when you were so ill and Steve covered. You look great. Thank you so much, Joan. Steve is amazing. He took care of my channel for me last year during that episode, and I can't thank him enough for that. He was there when I needed him, and I didn't even have to ask. He just offered. It was wonderful.
I had another creator in the last year or so that they also became ill, And I'd never reached out to them for anything, but I told them, I said, I see that you're ill and you're not able to do. And so I contacted them and said, do you want me to, that you can do the thumbnails, you can do whatever, and give me a topic. I'll talk on it if you want me to. And there's there's nothing in return that I request. And I got tickled for the fact that they said, you would do that? And I said, absolutely. Why wouldn't I? And because, you know, I believe in what people are doing in this genre and this YouTube channel and for true crime. And I hate to see anyone who has worked so hard building a community lose that community, because, you know, we have subs that come and go all the time, and it's not easy to build subs.
No, it's not. And it's like, you know, you've got people who, you know, support you and are there, and you want to be there for them and give them good information and a good show. And that's, you know, you, like I said, you've grown and you've done really well. People have followed you now. They know about you. And they're coming. And I think you're going to continue to do amazing things. And I'm right here. I'm right here for the ride. I want to watch.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, but how lucky can I be that I found the one person in the world that will dress up in Tyvek and let me drag her through the woods.
Exactly. I'm like, when you were talking about doing that and that reenactment, and, you know, and the fact that you were dragging her by her feet in the woods, I'm like, or arms or whatever it was you were doing.
Both.
Feet and arms. I'm just
I did
like,
both.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, you know, I was thinking about her waking up the next morning, you know, sore and needing a bit of ibuprofen.
Oh no.
But no, you know, what a great, like I said, a great team you both make. And, you know, she's lived the life. She knows what it's like to be the spouse of a law enforcement officer. And I've got him in my family. It's not easy. You know, you guys put your lives on the line when you go out into the field, and we have to always remember that. And you know, you can only be as strong as that support system is at home. Because if you know things at home are being taken care of and dealt with and all of that, and you are out there putting yourself on the line, you don't have to worry about her, because you know that she's got things taken care of. And, you know,
absolutely. Oh yeah.
So,
like I said, she just comes through and looks at me sometimes, just shakes her head. What are you doing?
I can't imagine walking through the house and all of a sudden you see a crime scene. I would be like, what the hell?
Yeah. Why are the chairs and furniture overturned?
Yeah, what have you been doing in here? Oh my goodness. So, what is your take? What is your feeling? I mean, you know, you've been traveling and you've been going around and doing, oh, John, thank you so much. I missed it. Thank you for your $10 super chat. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll give you the blue light. There you go.
Yay. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I love your blue light. I love the fact that you can take it with you. I think that's
I've got another one. Yes. I bought a little travel one.
I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Now it has a siren and everything on it, but I can't do it because it freaks out the dogs, and plus it would not be a good thing to be if you're wearing earpods.
There you go. What's happening with the move? Are you gonna be moving sooner, later?
Well,
how's that going to affect your traveling?
Yeah. I think I'm pretty well through for this year. But in January, after the second week of January, I'll be able to start getting back on the road. And I've got a bunch of equipment I've got to order in the coming days. And because some of the equipment that we're ordering takes 4 months to get built. And so some of the drone stuff and some of the things as we prep and prepare for what we want to do next year, of going out looking for the lost, missing, cold cases, and even certain cases, whereas there may just be a child or missing, that if they don't have the technologies, which there's a lot of places now that have a lot of technologies, but we want to play a part in it also. We want to play a role in it for the fact that the more eyes and the more technologies you have, the better it is for at the end of the day.
I can't agree with you more. I wish in some of these cases, I wish that there was better communication between all the different entities that are working them, because and that you wouldn't run into the, well, it's our case kind of mentality. You know what I mean? Because I think that there would be a lot more things solved quicker, maybe, if you have that, rather than and the politics we're talking about. I mean, it's out there, it's there, and it happens in these especially, I think, in the smaller communities, because they're it's like their little world, it's their little place, and they don't like the fact that outsiders want to come in and take over and do all these things. But I agree with you, more eyes
even
are
with
better.
Delphi, when you look at the Ives interview, you see where they had resources that are in recent or at any time that they never had had such a response to such a case by so many different law enforcement agencies.
Yep.
And that everyone thought it's just a matter of days. And if they hadn't missed some key
Exactly.
information, it was going to be just a matter of days.
Exactly. And they had, the FBI offered them, their tip system. I mean,
The Orion system, I think, is what it was.
yeah, and it's like that, that system is huge in helping a law enforcement community that is on the smaller side. Because stop and think about how many tips were coming into Delphi, and that's what I don't think a lot of people understand when they are so critical of law enforcement in this case specifically, especially in the very beginning. Yes, something was missed. We all know that, but people make mistakes. These are human beings. It happens. Is it tragic? Yes. Is it sad? Yes. But at the same time, there were literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of tips coming in that first year. And they were coming in so fast, they didn't have enough people to go through them. So they, to have that FBI system to help, I think was crucial. I remember early on, and I think it was in 2018, like early in the year, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but Doug Carter was interviewed, I believe, by WTHR, and they asked him about the case at that point and its status. And he said that they were continually working the case. It was not a cold case. They were constantly getting new information, new tips. And as long as that continued, those tips would be worked. And then once they got through them, they would go back to the beginning and start going through them again. Do you think that's what happened in 2022?
Well, I really don't know. I don't. I really don't know if it's because they had done it before. I think they sent it to the GBI also.
Yeah.
That earlier.
And that was in
peer
the
review.
end. That was the end of 2018 is when it went to the GBI.
But we don't know what all they sent.
No, we don't.
No, I mean, we don't know, and we don't know how many times other investigators came in and looked at that, and who, and how was it missed, and was there another tip that came in? There's very possible that occurred, and I would think more along those lines that someone says, well, what about so and so? Such as Richard Allen was there that day, and they said, really? Yeah, it's been reported before. Because even some of his friends says that they had talked to Richard, and he said that, yes, I've already went to law enforcement.
Yep.
And, it could have been something as simple as some of those people said, well, why aren't you being discussed as much as everyone else? Why
because he was talking at the pool hall twice a week when they were going to play pool. He was known to bring up the fact that, oh, I was talked to and cleared whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah, I don't know what brought it out to the at that final point, but whatever it was, appears to have put them on the correct track. If all the evidence is correct, and the key, of course, is going to be that bullet. Do they have other evidence? They may have that has been developed since then, but that discovery of that bullet. And I saw someone that that they argue the point that the bullet is something that is unreliable evidence. Well, I don't believe so. I mean, scientists and have and the technologies exist out there for them to go in and look at things, and it will be taken to court. And if the judge allows it, of course, the defense will bring in their experts and they'll try to. And what will the jury do? They'll weigh it, and if you get two opposing experts, a lot of times the jury just throws it out. So I don't know. And if that's the case, we may never see justice in this case, or we may see no conviction in this case. And if we don't get a conviction, then of course I don't think that we'll ever anyone else will ever be charged. It'd be like the O.J. Simpson case.
Yep, I agree with you on that. Our good friend Cop Faxx is in the house.
Hello, Cop Faxx.
Hi, Kristen and Steve. Something new with Delphi just about every day. Twists and turns, one after the other. I know. Your head just spins and spins, doesn't it, Perry?
Yeah, and he would. I don't know if he would agree with me or not, but I don't see, if he looked at the evidence that they have, and I'm sure he has.
Oh, I know he has.
As an alternate suspect, how could you ever prosecute anyone else with everything that would be brought up against Richard Allen? You'll never find, unless you get someone that, and there's DNA and you have a confession and you have photographs that are collected of them at the crime scene or images they took at the crime scene. I don't think you'll ever get anyone else convicted on it. And I think they have the one correct right now. It's just my opinion. He is innocent until proven guilty, but I think they've got the right guy.
I do too. I mean, I felt that way for a long, long time. I still go back to how I nearly fell off my chair when I first saw his picture. I was like, so I was one of those people. I see him in both of the sketches. I see the stature and the build of his face in both sketches. So it goes back to, because you know how people, this is constantly and still a thing. Everybody keeps saying that the Young Bridge guy sketch is not Richard Allen and it's somebody else. And I'm like, no, I don't believe that. I think this is an actual thing that happens with eyewitness accounts. You get people who see people differently. They visually see things differently. And then when they describe them differently. And when young people see someone, when we're talking like young people under the age of 17, which these girls were, they're going to describe someone older. You see older people are going to describe someone younger. And that's just how I kind of feel about this. I really don't think there's two people here. Is it possibly I'm wrong? Of course, it's just my opinion. But, you know.
The sketches give me a headache.
What is?
The sketches give me a headache.
Oh, I know. Well, talk about them. I mean, what is it that frustrates you? Because I mean, the sketches is one of the things that makes this case so incredibly crazy, in my opinion.
I think it was early on when they said that when it came out and when the family, and it was probably a lack of clarification of that in the early days, that we because most people took it as, okay, we've identified older guy, he's not involved. Now we have younger guy, he's the one involved. And they took it as two different people for so long. And then then later on, they backtracked a little bit and said, no, it's a combination of the two. But I think that was too little too late.
Yeah, Derek, they did say, or there was the rumor. I don't ever remember law enforcement actually in front of a camera or in print saying that the old bridge guy sketch had been looked at. It was not a person of interest anymore. What they said was that sketch was to become secondary. So to me, that means we're not discounting that sketch. If they didn't want anybody to look at that sketch, they would have told us this sketch no longer is relevant. Remove it out of your thought process. They never did that. And so I feel that law enforcement was playing a game when it came with the sketches in a way. And I think the reason was, in my opinion, is they were playing it with Bridge Guy himself. And I think that in 2019, when they released the sketch of the younger person, they didn't want Bridge Guy to know that they were on to him. I think they were getting close, and I think we're going to find out that. I think we're going to find out a lot more than we know. And I think that they needed to build a case, and sometimes that can take a while, as you well know. I just don't think that it's just something that fell into their laps last summer. I just don't. I feel like they had an idea. They may not have known who he was exactly, but they were getting closer. They knew he was local. They knew he was right there in front of them. And yeah, that's just how I feel. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I know if I look like the first sketch, and I give a lot of credit to the true crime community that kept these images and kept this story at the forefront for the fact of the impact that it may have put the offender to ground, and he wasn't able, that I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when he saw that first video of him walking. And
oh yeah. To me, that's exactly, I mean, we don't know specifically what day he went to, to law enforcement and talked to them. We don't know that yet. We know it was early, but my feeling is if it was after they released the still image of him on the bridge, he was like, holy shit. Where did that come from? Because to me, that's what led him to go. He wasn't trying to be, I don't think, a good Samaritan at that point. I think it was, he realized, well, not only did those girls see me, but somebody else got a picture of me.
Yeah, I always credited it that he was fearful because one of those girls, he may have known them or had seen them in the store before, and I always thought that maybe they were the ones of how come he had to step forward.
True. Yeah. Cynthia, thank you so much for the gift of membership. Somebody needs to go check their stocking. Cynthia Gaines gifted a membership to my channel. Thank you so much for the support. I so appreciate it. Derek, I always know you're respectful. You never have to say that with me. I always know how you feel. So don't feel like you have to apologize. Yes, keeping an open mind, Perry, is absolutely, I mean, I know how, I respect you so much as a law enforcement officer, and you have so much history as one, and in so many different ways. And I know you've got to keep an open mind here, because I know there's tentacles, and I'm not saying that there might not be other people involved in this case. I'm not. But right now, I feel they got the guy, and I'm still leaning to that lone wolf. I just don't see the evidence of it being anything other than that, because if so, they were so good at being stealthy. Nobody saw anybody else that day. There were no other vehicles notated. Nothing. I mean, it's just, to me, and I've been there, and now that I've been there and I've seen that location and I've seen it, I'm like, I just think that somebody would have seen something if there was other people there, especially 3 or 4 or 5 individuals that have been talked about.
Yeah.
I don't
The
know
only the only
how you
hiccup
feel.
in the system I'll ever have is if they say that um, the Logan property isn't where the um, both victims became homicide victims. If it's anywhere else other than on the Logan property, you'll never convince me in 1,000 years of a lone wolf.
Right.
If you show me that the deaths occurred on the Logan property, yes, I'll go with lone wolf. But for the fact that um, an average man wouldn't be able to, I doubt an average man would be able to carry um, even Abby across that creek and up that embankment, even 100, 120 pounds.
That
But
embankment is spooky. I mean, when you're on that other side of the creek, on the south side, looking at that north side embankment, I mean, I guess they probably law enforcement probably knows exactly where they walked up because there
oh
was
yeah,
probably footprints and all that kind of stuff. But when we're looking at that, it's I mean, Perry's been there, Faxx has been there. We know how steep that is in
oh
some
yeah,
of those areas. So yeah, it's going to be really, really tough to get yourself up it, let alone carrying weight or dead weight,
yeah,
you
yeah. I mean,
know?
uh, I think what was it? Libby's around 180 to 200, uh, and Abby was quite a bit smaller, but still, the average person wouldn't been able to move them from any other property. And so, but that's just my opinion. I could be dead wrong.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Cynthia, thank you for the new membership gift. That's awesome. She gifted another one, you guys. Go check it out. Um, yeah, I mean, we've all heard all different kinds of things about around this case. The fact that I've heard that the girls were taken to a shack. Is there a shack? Yes, there is a semi kind of shacky thing. Um, it is on the south side. I've heard people say they were taken to a garage. Is there a garage? Yeah, there's probably more than one. There's outbuildings on the Logan property. There are a lot of areas in that whole area that the girls could have been taken to. I still go back to law enforcement and Kim Riley when he told us that the girls were killed where they were found. And that was early on. Now, did they lie to us? Did they just say that because they were, you guys are in law enforcement. You guys know better than I why law enforcement would say that if it wasn't true. They're got to be careful about what they're saying. Again, they don't want to put information out there that is going to let the killer know what they know, and they also don't want to put information out there where someone could confess by using
Yeah,
that information.
yeah. Like I said, I absolutely will follow the lone wolf as long as that they have evidence of where Riley was looking at, because and even with law enforcement, you're going to have those officers that and it's a great thing to have where you have that think tank and you have counterpoint of what occurred and what didn't occur,
Right.
and what does this piece of evidence mean? What does that mean? And it sounds like he's on the side that this is where it occurred, and it's a possibility of lone wolf. And then there's other officer says no, there's other people involved. So which one is it? I have no idea. Can't wait to court.
Deb with True Crime Notebook, you're in the house, and I just saw that. Thank you so much for being here. So happy to have you. Mrs. Depp asks, can they lie to the public or not even intentionally lie? What if even they were thrown off?
It happens.
Well,
Law enforcement. Yeah. Sometimes, we see it so much that um, I think, what was it, on day one that one of the officers, was it police chief, I believe, said that there's no need to worry, there's no threat to the community.
Yes, I was so angry when he said that.
I took that as a great sign. We know who he is. We got him, but didn't turn out to be that way.
Yeah. No, I was really angry because they didn't have an arrest, and Mullins kept saying to the public, well, he made the comment that, first of all, that his residents were smart and that they knew how to protect themselves, or something to that effect, which I thought was a ridiculous comment for him to make. When you have 2 murdered children in such a open space on a Monday afternoon, something that never happens in your community, and you don't have somebody in handcuffs, how can you not want the public to be on the lookout or be warned? I get you don't want panic, but to make that statement was, yeah. But again, it probably goes back to also what you said earlier about Ives thinking that they were going to have this wrapped up within just a couple of days. For whatever reason, when they looked at that crime scene, either they knew who they thought had done it, or they figured they would have caught them really quickly. And I can't wait to ask Robert Ives that question when this case is all over and done with. Why did you say that? What was it that made
I
you
think
think
he was absolutely honest. I think he was absolutely that. We have a picture and we have his voice.
Mm-hmm.
We know, this is the guy. This is who did it.
Yeah.
And this fellow here doesn't have an alibi, because he's here. And so how many people in that small town of locating that area and being familiar with that area, having access to it, you're only looking at a small number of the population. And although it's 6 years worth of population before we got to the arrest, but still, they said he was hiding in plain sight. Now, they was 100% accurate on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I always felt like he was local. And I felt like he was local simply because of the remoteness of where it happened. And that's not someplace that somebody's just going to find on a whim and go to. And I was like, the person that did this knew where that bridge was. They know, and that's not something that's easily found, even though some people think it's easily found. It's not. It's not something that's just, you're going to just know is there unless you're from that area. And that was what got me. This person either traveled that 25 back and forth, on a regular basis, or worked in the area or lived in the area. And they were right.
Yeah. Farmer has a great question here.
Yep.
It says that as a case gets older and sometimes cold, how much does the info change from coming from law enforcement? How much is the new evidence versus strategy? And from my perspective of what we would do and discuss is that we look at the evidence. What evidence do we have? What evidence do we absolutely have to keep close to the chest and not share? So that's the start of the strategy. Strategy starts from the moment you get there and you start working that crime scene. That everything after that point, you have a game plan that, of course, you have chaos as officers respond and things get trampled on, and the time of securing that scene and getting the people necessary to the scene to process it properly, it's all chaos. But at some point, we start getting our footing and start getting a control of the situation, and everything's a strategy. Doesn't matter. Strategy is always the main part of it from day one. Of this is what the evidence tells us. This is how we're going to release certain things, keep certain things to ourselves. What will we release and why will we release it? And that's how come those images came out in the early days when BG was first seen. It's just a person of interest we need to talk to. He was on the trails that day.
Yep.
Giving him that window of opportunity to.
I was going to ask you what changed. What made him change? Because it was 3 days later that they made him the suspect. What changed? What do you think?
Well, you've got 72 hours that everyone in that town, it's an impossibility that within that small community, that here's a picture of a guy and the voice of a guy. When are you going to come forward?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't.
Right.
Or if he did, if you go under your theory that he did come forward, they lost it, which is uh-oh. And
Yeah.
And so at that point, that within 72 hours, the guy didn't come forward. And so now we have to list him and put him under pressure. Is it still more of a strategy? Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
We're
Mrs.
gonna
Depp
put the
said,
fear. We're gonna make him run. We're gonna make him move. We're going, now they will have, of course, discussed this with um, the behavioral science unit and say, okay, how can we apply pressure to him? Well, we change him from a person of interest. He didn't come forward. Now we're going to say, you're the bad guy. Welcome to our world. We're coming for you.
yeah, no
And,
kidding.
and not only putting pressure on him, but put pressure on his alibi.
Interesting. Steve,
That,
how often are strategies just solely for the killer despite confusing the heck out of everyone else?
well, everything, as always, that's who you want. You want that offender. We have to make sure that the public is aware. And but everything's a strategy because that's what we're paid to do, is to find the predators and find justice. And the only way we get justice is that we take this predator off the street just as soon as we can.
Yep. Derek says, so is the bottom line sort of that law enforcement is still holding cards we do not know about?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I you don't know how many live streams I watch where people are like, the whole case was in the probable cause, and I'm like, no, it's not. They have information that we don't know about yet, and we still may not know how the flow of things happened in this crime. And I go back again to the beginning when I started following the case from day one. And somewhere along the line in late 2017 to the middle of 2018, it came out from law enforcement that social media had the crime scene flow wrong. Now, they never expanded on that, so we don't know what they meant by that, but I'm just saying that just because we think we know doesn't mean we know. If I've learned anything from Faxx all these years, watching him and listening to him, that is one of the things. Law enforcement's not going to tell you everything that they're doing. In fact, they're not going to tell you most of the time of what they're doing, because loose lips sink ships.
Absolutely. And what was it? There's a saying. God, I can't think of who the author was, about our greatest our greatest understanding or beliefs that we absolutely know for a fact is our greatest handicap, for the fact that when those facts are wrong, that I can't believe who I can't remember who what that saying was, but it is very powerful, and it's very true that the things that we know for a fact are the things that get us in the biggest trouble, for the fact that it's not always true.
It's not always true. Yes. Mrs. Depp asked, Steve, in any regular case, how often are things lost?
All the time.
These are
I've been
human
there.
beings, guys.
I've been there, and just absolutely tear my office apart. Now, it was here a minute ago. What did I do with it? And of course, it either got stuck on the back of something else I'd processed or something as I was bagging, or have one bag and something I've already logged. And now I'm looking for what I've logged. Where did I put this? In what box or in what order? And things get, and now and that's stuff that's logged. It can get lost. But on the crime scene itself, as you're processing the crime scene, things get destroyed. Especially if there's any sign of life and we have to do anything to take those measures to save life. But if it is a homicide in there and it's obvious, then of course, even in those that as you go through that crime scene, every step that you take, every movement that you make, you have the possibility of destroying evidence, and it happens.
Yep.
And you just try to minimize what gets destroyed.
Perry says, usually only a public information officer would release info. This case has been a mess.
Yeah, well, he's absolutely correct.
He's absolutely correct. I mean, to call it a mess, I think I'd call it more than that, but it's been a roller coaster ride that's incredibly crazy. I often wonder what it's going to look like when it's all said and done, and it's either adjudicated, or as you put it, they don't get a conviction, and it, or whatever. Because
I mean, even when you look at the press briefings, the early press briefings, you had, what part of the strategy would that be? You've got what, 20, 30 law enforcement officers, highest agencies in the land, standing on TV and playing with the mind of the offender. This is what you're against, guy. Every agency in the state of Indiana and even the United States FBI, we're coming for you. All to apply pressure. It's all a strategy that you don't stand a chance.
Right.
Trying to have an impact. And didn't work, but they tried.
And, I think it's because of the narrative. I mean, I know people say, well, Richard Allen didn't have a social media presence. We don't know that. I laugh at this because there are so many people out there that are not themselves on social media. They make up some other persona and they're out there. Richard Allen could have been anybody on social media. We have no way of knowing. I firmly believe he was following this case. I think he was following this case really, really, really following it and wanting to know what they knew. But I think at one point, or at some point, he got the feeling as the years went by, they have no idea who I am.
I 100% agree.
I got away with this because, and again, innocent until proven guilty. But in my mind, that's how I see this, is that he is thinking to himself, they don't have a clue who I am.
Yep, I absolutely. And like I said, I'm shocked that he didn't move away after the first year.
Yeah, same. I mean, same thing. I'm like, I just really think that he thought he got away with it. Mrs. Depp says, true cop facts. So then other people analyze one law enforcement's answer till the end of time, like Steve Mullins saying it's like he's never committed a crime. I don't know that I ever heard Steve Mullins say that, but I do know that the public information officer said it. What's his name? Riley. He said it. But to a YouTuber who was covering the case, who's no longer with us, he passed away, but Michael Catt, he interviewed him and he told Michael, this was before they went to Denver, going after Daniel Nations and the Daniel Nations lead. And he said that they had run him through the database, or they had run what they had, whether it be fingerprints or DNA, through the database, and it did not appear that he'd ever committed a crime before. And all that means is that he wasn't caught. That doesn't mean that he'd never committed a crime before.
Absolutely. I mean, we see that with a lot of serial offenders. Hurman, Bundy, Rader, that, we never expected, they didn't have a history, but then we find they do.
Gail Hurd says, to his bad behavior towards those Walmart women is strong evidence of it in her opinion. Yeah, I think it speaks a lot volumes as to how he feels or looks upon women, for sure. But Stephanie says that she bets RA is a peeping Tom. Very,
I I I don't
very
have any.
possible. I
Oh,
mean, he made some really gross kind of comments to employees of him, that were working for him, and subordinates in underneath of him, whatever. And kind of shocking. So he obviously, I mean, they said these women felt like, he was kind of a pervert. So who knows?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of to be said by that behavioral science, that there's other things that occur through these fantasy driving, and what the motive would be, and if the crime scene is actually as what's been reported and through those images and otherwise, then yes, the motivation is something that is absolutely horrible. That type of person would absolutely be a peeping Tom, and would absolutely be someone that would be out at night.
Yeah. Stephanie says that he even had the nerve to go into the woman's bathroom in the Walmart, which is, yeah. I mean, he walked right in there like, oh, well, who does that? I mean, it's just, it speaks to me to a lot of different things. And I think that, yeah, somebody who has that forensic psychology degree would have a field day with a lot of this stuff. There were a lot of people on social media who did the crime scene flow, but I know that early on, in the very early days, Gray Hughes did the crime scene flow. And I don't know if his was the first, but I'm pretty much thinking it was. It was pretty doggone close, if not the first.
Yeah, the timelines, as far as the trail and everything, a lot of the crime scene stuff, I think that was, that's still such a big mystery that we
It
know
is.
so little. We have a few images,
Yep.
just a few, that if you took all the images and add them together, we're still in a less than a second.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's a lot that we don't know. And until we do know, it's hard for us to make any kind of a definitive answer on what happened. But I definitely feel like they've got the right person. I mean, I just do. He's put himself there. He's admitted to the crimes. When I talked to
the
my
time frame, I mean, he put himself there at a critical time.
Yeah,
frame.
exactly. Everybody for years was hollering about the fact that there was a POI that supposedly was there that was cheating on his fiance, and this person was talked about on Reddit, was talked about on True Crime Garage's podcast, and basically doxed, and everybody was upset about this. And they talked about, why in the world would you even consider this person being a suspect? Well, first of all, the reason that I said that this person should be looked at was because they came forward on social media and said they were there that day during the time the girls disappeared. So anybody that puts themselves in the middle of a murder scene at the time that it's happening is highly suspect, in my opinion, and needs to be looked at. And so he did that. He not only put himself on the trails, he put himself on the trails at the exact time that this was happening. And then nobody saw him again. It's not like they saw him go back to his car. They saw him coming. They saw him coming into the trails, but nobody saw him again except for the muddy, bloody lady.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Do you think, this was a question I did want to ask you. How do you feel about the fact that in this case, since he's been arrested, We have no character witnesses for him coming forward. Nobody's giving character witness stuff to the press about Richard Allen, whether it be family, friends, co-workers, whatever. Nobody's coming forward and saying, this cannot be him. He did not do, there's no way this man did this. We know him. Does that surprise you in some respects?
Well, whereas we have a lack of that within the community, we don't have a lack of that in the web sleuth world. we have well, we have two trains.
Yes.
We have two trains on a collision course that will meet somewhere by next year, and we'll see where it comes out. But yes, from within the community, you're absolutely correct. And it's strange that we have the people that are defending him are not from the community.
Don't know him. That's what I think so funny is we've got all of these people on social media defending Richard Allen's innocence and saying that there's no way he did this and that he's a patsy and all these other things. They don't even know him, but you don't have anybody that lives in that community. He lived there for years. He's got neighbors. He's got coworkers. He frequented businesses there on a regular basis, whether it be to eat out with his wife or to go, to the bars, whatever. They know him. And I just can't believe that nobody has stood up and said, because to me, in my train of thought, if a friend of mine was accused and arrested for this kind of a crime and I knew them, I would stand up and say there's no way they could do this.
Well, but I'm going to have to, we have to look at, are they going to be witnesses and are they under a gag order?
Yeah, that's true. See, that's what I wanted you to speak to. Could they have already been told they can't talk about the case?
Yeah. And so, that may be as simple as that, yes, these are the ones that are going to come to his defense and they just can't step forward, or they don't want to step forward and align themselves with him. And, because who wants to, that if you believe the evidence, you don't align yourself there, I wouldn't embrace anyone that if I looked at the evidence and my understanding of how law enforcement works and seeing this evidence that, we're going to have to let this go through the courts. I'm just going, I'm not going to defend someone that I think very possibly could be this person, unless you knew for a fact. Now, if I knew for a fact that he wasn't, and that's an impossibility, absolutely. I don't care who you are. I'll tell you that you're crazy. And there's certain people I know that I would never in 1,000 years believe that they're capable of anything along these lines. But that's a very limited number of people.
Right. Well, I've always said that you don't really know a person. We think we know people. And I think the reason that I feel that way now is because of doing true crime and delving into some of these cases and some of the offenders that commit these crimes. You look at these people and you're thinking to myself, there's, they were upstanding. Some of them were upstanding citizens and they were pillars in their churches and their communities and all this other stuff. And then they end up doing something like this. And you're like, how did we miss it? How did we not know that this person was capable of doing this or whatever? And I know that there's crimes of passion and supposedly, we're all capable of losing it or snapping and whatever. But you know what I mean? It's like, you never really know what that person next to you is capable of doing anymore. It's kind of like, because I'm sure Kathy Allen is in this same predicament. She has got to be looking and thinking, I think that's probably why she's in denial, maybe to a degree, of him doing this, because even though he's told her he did, she can't believe it. She won't allow herself to believe that the person that she loved did this.
Mrs. Depp has a great question there.
Oh, this one here?
Yes.
Steve,
It
I don't
says,
remember what it was, but when you came back from your first Delphi trip, shared findings live with Mrs. Steve, and you tried one test and had a major takeaway. Can you remind us?
I can't remember all the tests I've done just off the top of my head, but one of the biggest things, and one of the things is that when I first got there, of course, I had made contact with other people for later time periods of, such as with Randy and Julie to get me access to certain areas and to show me what the local um, feelings were and discussions. But one of the first tests and the initial one is how hard is it to find this bridge and to find these parking areas? And we went to I think it was a third or fourth attempt before we found where it was. I
We
mean,
missed it twice. We missed it twice. We drove
and
right
so
past the entrance twice.
yeah, so that drove me to the conclusion that yes, absolutely, it's a local. It's not some stranger that's just driving down the interstate and says, "I'm
No.
gonna pull over here and
Yeah.
have a picnic." That looks like a nice walking trail.
Yeah.
It, no,
Nope.
although there is that big 4-lane road that goes right up under the Freedom Bridge, but you don't recognize it for what it is. You think it would be a road going across or something, unless you were
Exactly.
from that area. And
Yep.
so that was one of the biggest things of just locating it and realizing that um, it's absolutely a local. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's not somebody just traveling down the interstate. So I don't know if but that's one of the key things. But now on the phone pings, that's another test. I didn't do that on the first, or did I? I can't remember. I might have, but the phone pings was huge too. Of that, I had a list of things that when I went up there that we did from even going into the dark, but on the phone pings, trying to see how accurate and they were, you know, that not all the pings were incorrect, but probably 50% of them were. That they would show you had moved 100 yards when you hadn't moved 3 feet, or they showed you that um, uh, you were within a 3 to 5 mile area. Made no
So if
sense to me.
you have that information now, and you know that because you did your own testing, what does that tell you about the pings that they got from Ron Logan's phone?
Same thing.
Do you not put any weight into those then?
No, there's no way that I would. Now, if they said,
Rely on those?
if, now, if they say that we have 100 pings, and out of those 100 pings, 50 of them show that he's standing there, then okay, all right, I'm going. Okay, yeah, he's probably standing there. But if we don't know how many pings they say that he's standing there. If it's
Right,
just one, it could be anything.
right.
But if and that's the thing that when I was doing that, like I said, Mrs. Steve and Purdue RN and Mr. Purdue RN, they were in the car just hitting those pings every few seconds, and it was showing me here and there and everywhere, which
I
was,
remember.
yeah.
That's really
And then
good.
going in and um, traveling and moving through that wooded area, no ridges, in total darkness with no light.
Yeah.
That was almost the end of me. I almost fell off one of those embankments, but luckily I didn't. But that also told me that um, you wouldn't expect anyone to return to that after dark. And if you had a light, you're going to stand out like a
That
Christmas tree.
terrain right there where the girls were found with that big, huge gully that's been cut out in the middle, you know where I'm talking about from the rain, and it's like this big gully that you have to, when you're coming from the bridge to the crime scene, that's that gully I'm talking about that you've got to get over to get to where they're at. That is not easy. to
The
to
one I
to
almost fell
maneuver.
off of while you're going to that gully, if you looked over the creek and it's almost like a cliff,
Yes. Yeah.
that's the one I came up in the middle of the night.
Is that the one where you almost fell backwards?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, if I
Oh,
hadn't
boy.
have caught that limb,
Oh.
I mean, it
Oh,
wasn't,
Lord.
it's probably what, only 75 or 80 feet, but wouldn't have
That's
been
a
pretty.
lot. You'd have been hitting trees. It's not just like, yeah, that would not
Yeah,
be
if they
good.
growed out enough, I might hit a tree or two.
Oh my God. I'm glad that did not happen. But yeah, that had to have been bizarre to have that. Because I know you're like, well, it was unsettling, but I was fine. I'm
Oh, yeah.
sure Mrs. Steve was glad to see you back in the car.
Oh, yeah. I was,
Sees through says, I wouldn't be unlocking any cell doors until he explains where he was at 2:13 p.m. on the 13th of February, 2017.
and that's a good point.
That is a very good point.
And it's not just what he tells you. It's going to be what the evidence shows.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. Um, Derek's talking about how society celebrates evil and puts these people on some sort of, I don't know, pedestal kind of. And he's talking about that in chat. And he just says, don't get me wrong. If I think a person is innocent, it's a different story. But people literally have fond feelings for these turds. To put it mildly, I mean, jumping ship from Delphi to Idaho, look at all the people that are writing love letters to Brian Koberger in jail. Granted, he hasn't been convicted yet either, but I think that's going to be another done deal. I feel they have the right person in that case as well. And I don't understand how this happens. I'm sure there's
Didn't Ted Bundy
psychology
get
behind it.
married?
Yeah, he got married and had a child. Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad because I just want to sometimes look at these women and ask them what's wrong with them. I'm like, what's your problem? What are you doing? But yeah, it's crazy. There's also a conversation happening in chat about the fact that Libby may have had a water bottle with her that day that disappeared and they never found it. I've never heard that. I've never heard Kelsey say that she took a water bottle with her. So that I don't know. I don't know if that's true or if that's just one of those rumors that's out there. That parking lot is hard to find. Yes, that parking lot is very hard to find. Jamie asked for what my thoughts were on the bridge when I saw it. And what I can tell you is I had so many visions of this place in my head. I'd seen so many photographs. I had since seen tons of drone footage. So I felt like I knew the area, but you don't realize it's kind of like anything else. You think you have it in your head until you get there and you see it. It's extremely beautiful. It's very tranquil, quiet, peaceful, almost an eerie peacefulness to it. Knowing what took place out there gives a whole different a vibe to the place, in my opinion. When I walked to the bridge, because they've redone the bridge, it has a completely different feeling about it than I think it probably did if you went to the bridge before they redid it. First of all, I think it would have even been more eerie and more frightening because that bridge is scary. When you look at the bridge part that they did not repair, I can't believe those girls were out there on that bridge. And I mean, we're talking, obviously, yeah, it was, 7 years ago almost or whatever since this happened. And so there was a lot of wear and tear on that bridge since then from weather. But my goodness, just as high up as it is, and the fact that there was no railings on that bridge, a big wind comes along and there goes Abby. I mean, she wasn't any bigger than a minute. She could have just been blown off. I can't imagine people walking across it and letting someone else go past them. They talk about how they would have to step onto those little landing outcrops. You wouldn't have got me stepping on the bridge, let alone on those outcrops. I'm so afraid of heights. But I mean, I did go out on the bridge. I walked out on the bridge. I took pictures out on the bridge. And it's like I said, it's just extremely beautiful. I was overcome with emotion when I was on the bridge, and I did cry because it just makes you feel it's so senseless. It's such a beautiful place and just a senseless act, and the terror that those girls had to have felt that day with that man coming at them on that bridge. I can't even begin to imagine what they were feeling like, but that's how I felt about it. What did you think when you saw it for the first time?
Well, I mean, early on, like I said, they may have seen him and they've got the bad vibes because everyone that met Richard Allen and the ones that really met Richard Allen that he admits to meeting, they said that he was creepy or that he was on a mission or they had bad vibes or, that he stood out during that. No one says that he was a friendly, chipper, great guy, opened up to conversations. We don't have any of that. And if the rumors are true from the conversation that's on the video or audio, that they also had bad vibes enough so that they started a video of him. There's something that sparked Libby to start that chain of events. And what was it? Was it a bad vibe? And at what point was it the presentation of a firearm that really would have started the level of fear and horror that they realize that this isn't going to end well? And
Yeah.
And I've seen that on a lot of cases, whereas you have fight or flight. And then, of course, you have those that fall under the spell and are controlled, that they do neither. They don't fight. They don't flee. They just do as told. And regardless, you can't fault anyone for whatever choices you make. No one deserves that to happen to them.
No. Absolutely not, for sure. Hey, Sean, how are you? Good to see you. Hope you are well. Hold on a second. How precise would it have been 5 years ago? I don't know the question. How precise?
That's probably on the pings.
Okay.
I can't expect that it would be any better, because this was last year.
Yeah.
So I can't believe that the technology was better 5 years ago versus now. But now we were probably using different technology than what they were, but still it wasn't good.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yes, it does have a rail now. It has a railing where you can walk out onto the bridge. It's completely encased in a railing, so you won't fall off of it.
I went out there when they closed the trail and they first started taking everything off of it, and all they had was plywood sitting on the iron rails, and it was snowing. I went out there and I was looking. They had some cable that was across this vast expanse of nothing but, and there's so much steel work in between those two areas. You couldn't fall through if you wanted to without being able to catch on. And I said, man, I think I can go across that if I hold on to that wire. And I looked over my shoulder and there's a guy in the truck on the phone. And I said, well, he's calling the police. And, so I just turned around and left versus trying to cross it in the snow and ice. And I could see that Mrs. Steve being upset if I fell 60 feet into a creek.
I think she might be just a tad. Yeah. Southern Gal True Crime says, I've never understood these people's fascination and obsession with these offenders.
Oh,
I
no.
don't understand it either. I think psychologists have studied it, but it's really bizarre to me. I mean, I think there's an actual word for it that they use
There
for
is. There is.
these
And I
women
want to
who.
thank Southern Gal. She was on my show earlier tonight on
Yes, I know. I didn't get to see it. I'm going to watch it on the replay.
yeah. Yeah, she was on my show. I appreciate it. She's another up and coming creator,
That's
and
awesome.
absolutely
Awesome.
does a great um, interpretation and bringing awareness to these cases. And I appreciate everybody doing that.
That's awesome. Dandy Lioness says, nothing says mental stability like writing a serial killer.
I get a little funny moment that Mrs. Steve and I had on a conversation after I went out in the darkness that night to do the ping test. And she says, well, what if there's someone else out there? I said, well, who's going to be out there other than an offender or a nut? And she just looked at me and shook her head.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, I had my creator friends and people that I knew from Reddit days and everything that were going to Delphi and were out there. GonZo was out there. Perry
Oh, I'm
was
talking
out
about in the
there.
middle of the night.
Well, I get it. And I'm like, you guys, you got to be careful. There's at the point in time, nobody had been arrested yet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if they know you're going and what you're going for, yeah. I mean, you guys like have no fear. It's like you just go out there and.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's nobody going to be out in the woods, and I was the only one there, and there wasn't,
Who's going to be out there in the middle of the night? Some guy who's doing experiments and testing.
Yeah, I mean, I had a purpose. I had a purpose.
Oh, I love it. Stephanie says, if I see anyone having RA's baby, I'm going to throw up. Oh my God. Please help us. Let's see. Southern Gal says, I'm so afraid of heights. I would never have gone out on that bridge. My daughter talked me into it. It's the only way I got out there because I wasn't going to go out there either.
They changed it. They keep improving it every time. They make changes.
Yep. Kristen, my husband, the one before Johnny, this is from Mrs. Depp, has a deep fear of bee stings. So if there was a bee, he would have freaked out and dodged to the left, and he wanted to cross. I Mrs. Steved him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she looks at you. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, seriously, you guys, on that bridge with no railing, one misstep and you were a goner. I mean, it's not like you could have caught yourself on something. You would just have been over the edge and done. I mean, Sean says, I went out there and I met Sean, by the way, when I was there for the memorial walk, you guys. He said, I went out there and crossed the bridge alone on a Saturday morning, and that bridge and ravine is spooky for sure, especially when I saw the shoe tree. I said to myself, I wonder how many more AOH. I'm not sure what that means.
I don't know. Let's see. I'm sure it's something quite obvious.
I'm sure it is too. But yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre place. I mean, it's
okay. When I saw the shoot, I said to myself, I wonder how many more are out here, maybe?
Are out here.
Just taking a guess.
Yep. I think you're probably right. Oh Lord.
Oh yeah, Sean, he verified it. I'm right. Me and Sean, we on the same wavelength.
Cynthia says, thank you, Kristen and Steve. Thank the mods for all your hard work. Thanks, chat. Stay safe, everyone. Cynthia, thank you so much for being here and for your gifting of your memberships. Thank you so much. Hey, Daisy, good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Southern Gal says, at Boston Christian, those women must have very low self-esteem or something going on mentally or emotionally too. I almost feel sorry for them. Exactly. I kind of do as well. Hyperbristophilia. Got credit from HCC for that. HCC's my guy. Let's see.
I saw where he took a IQ test online the other day.
Did he really? I missed that. He's
Yeah,
funny.
I think he scored like 133.
He's a smart
He is
person.
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he's a very, very smart guy. Um, let's see. Um, Boston says, I came home from work and he was in my house hiding probably in a crawl space, but he was a real sick freak. How could anyone write to him? I don't know, Boston, but there are people out there that seem to do, and it's scary. Jamie wants to know, Mr. Steve, did your thoughts and opinions change after you went to Delphi and saw the area in person?
Absolutely. Boots on the ground, going to an area will change your perspective on so many levels. You start seeing some of the areas that are under certain conditions. Where are the ambush points? Uh, there's nowhere in the when there's no foliage on the trees to hide. I mean, it's not a thick forest. The
No,
trees are not huge,
nope.
uh, and but there are certain areas of whereas you just went off each side of the trail, you could drop down to a little old ravine and lay there and be hidden, but you wouldn't be able to sneak up on anyone um, uh, without their knowledge.
Before they
And
redid the trail, not the bridge, but the trail part,
yeah,
there was a portion to get to the bridge. You had to walk through a deer path
mhm.
up into the woods and through the trees and down and then around to get to the bridge. That's what I mean by saying it wasn't something that people were just going to know was there,
Yeah.
because you literally had to walk a deer path through the woods to get to that bridge. It's not like it was a direct route like it is now. Like you hop on the
And there's
trail
still
and
a
go straight
section
there.
that if you went, that if you go in the opposite direction away from Monon High Bridge after you cross Freedom Bridge, that if you walk where the three girls cross the road and you continue on, it takes you to a parking lot. But if you get on the old railroad bed, there's still that old deer trail type
Yep.
of trail. Uh, Mr. Purdue RN and myself, we walked that. We walked as far hundreds of yards, and experienced what it would have looked like because that hasn't been improved.
Right.
And so it still has the old deer trail effect. But I was able to experience from understanding what that looked like to what it would have looked like on the other side.
Sean, I saw this after I met you at the memorial walk. I actually saw this. Somebody sent me that clip or whatever of her talking about this. Sean says that he snuck up on Laura Ingalls from News Nation and scared her half to death. She videoed me and turned me into law enforcement, and they told her to take it down. But I saw that and I was like, that's creepy. I know who Sean is. I met him. It's like, but yeah. Anybody that's sneaking up on people out there, yeah, that's not a good idea, because it's with everything we know that happened out there, that's pretty scary. I can see why she thought you were suspect if that's what you did. Kelly wants to know if we think that RA revisited the crime scene.
I do.
Oh, I do. I think he probably went there a lot over the years.
If you're an individual, if he is the one responsible, or whoever is responsible, if you're an individual, because whoever's responsible for it, after they committed such a crime, and we have a crime that it's not that you took one victim and you have remorse. You have an individual that had no remorse because we did the same act twice. We took the lives of two innocent children.
Yep.
And then re-entered back into society as if nothing occurred. And when you have someone that has that ability, then and they're able to do such a horrible act, not once but twice, that and they're working in a world that we are unfamiliar with. Their understanding reality is different than my understanding of reality, and they live things and relive things different than I.
And moral code, because these offenders, a lot of the times, they want to relive what they did. And so that's one of the reasons why they go back to the scenes of the crime and to relive that. And it's, his own attorney said that he walked there all the time. Do you think that he suddenly stopped walking there just because the murders happened? I don't. I think that he definitely went back there.
Well,
It would not
even
surprise
I've
me at
said that.
all.
Even I've said that part of their strategy of looking at phones is who came there before, who came there that day, and who stopped coming there. And nothing stood
Yes.
out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Lynn wants to know if it is a problem that one of the new attorneys was interviewed before being appointed the attorney about the case. And what she's referring to is one of the defense attorneys that's been appointed was interviewed about the bullet and about the fact that it had been matched. And how did he feel about that being junk science? And he said it's not junk science.
Yeah. I think the only one that can really answer that and could raise a question would be Richard Allen himself, if there's some type of standing.
Yeah, I agree. Boston says that I wish they would check his phones to see if Rick Allen was there weeks before the attack at Monon High and just see how many times he was there prior to. They may very well have done that.
I expect so.
I expect that that's something that they would definitely do, just like they did with the Brian Kohberger case. They wanted to see, how do you think they found out that Brian had been to the house all these multiple of times is through his phone records. Our phones that we carry with us everywhere now tell a story, even if we don't want it to.
But I think
unless
they're
we
faced
turn it
with
off, and then it still tells a story, right?
Yeah, I think they're going to be faced with a lot of the stuff that of what some of my findings were, that these pings, they just put you in a localized area.
Yeah, because I don't think the pings can ping you to a spot. I just don't.
There was times that, like I said, when I was out there, that yes, it was correct, but it was only correct about half the time. Which
The
one
rest of
is?
the time, didn't it tell you at one point you were 5 miles away?
Yes, that's the other half. Well, it didn't say I was 5 miles away. It said I'm somewhere within this 5 miles.
Within this 5-mile radius. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, we don't know yet what kind of phone he had. We don't know if he had an iPhone or whatever. And what if he, does anybody out there know if 360 was available 7 years ago? I don't think it was. Because what I was thinking is if he was locked in with his family, like the 360 app that they now have where you can follow your kids and you can follow your family members, you always know where they are, so to speak, through their phones. That would be good information. I don't know if they could get that because, like I said, I don't know if it was available back then. I wanted to ask you while I still have you, we got about 15 more minutes, but I wanted to ask you this. Somebody just that I used to follow, a creator recently reposted a video he made a few years ago, and he's been silent for a while, and it brought up a thought process for me. But it was True Crime Jesus, and he posted a video about one of the POIs from back in the day who happened to be a professor who was, you probably know who I'm talking about, but anyway, and so he was talking about the geocaching and the fact that this particular geocache that was at the trail, there was a geocache of his that was actually on the trail. And the weekend before the murders, Kelsey was out there and logged that geocache, and it's logged in the geocache logbooks. and then immediately after they happened, that geocache disappeared. Do you think that that has any relevance? Is that just coincidental? What?
I could see, whereas if I was a part of that and it was something that I had left there, I wouldn't want to lure other children, women, or anyone into an area that might interfere with investigations or possibly put someone in harm's way. And that, oh man, I can't, it's still there. I don't want people that may be traveling through, because there are certain people that travel the country that might
Yes.
look that up. I don't know. But I could see where someone might just take it away. Or at least that would be my argument, that,
As to why it just disappeared.
yes, I don't, my goodness, it's such a horrible thing that occurred. I don't want other children that these kids went there. I don't want other kids going to that area until we find out who this offender is.
Right. Right. Great insight, because I really, really wanted to ask you about that. Joan says, hello, Cop Faxx. Always remember you said a lot of things went on in the Allen house and maybe other houses as well. Can you elaborate now? I don't know if he'll elaborate, but one of the things that I can say is that you never know what's going on in your neighbor's house. And we don't know what the dynamic was in that house. We don't have a clue as to what the dynamic was in that house. And there are so many things we don't know about this man and how he was in private or whatever. And until we do, it's hard to say what may or may not have been going on in his relationship, not only with his wife, but with his child, with his daughter, and other family members. We just don't know. True crime Jesus has been resurrected. Jamie says, that is the most law enforcement answer I've ever heard, Mr. Steve.
I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't either. It's just like, question. Could Richard Allen being housed in the same prison as Keegan Kline be a law enforcement strategy?
I would argue that this is probably the most inept thing they could ever do, because if there wasn't connections before, there's connections now.
Exactly.
And is it a strategy that, we're going to have communications, we're going to give the opportunity? I don't. Whereas you can monitor mail and phone calls, you got jailhouse rats that's going to be delivering messages or whatever, and who knows? And you're going to have the ability that some of these guys are going to start, hey, so and so said this, and it's going to bring up possibilities of people coming up with stories of communications that are not true.
Yeah. Southern Gal says, I've walked many deer trails, and if you don't know what you're looking for, you wouldn't be able to find them. You know what comes to mind with that is when you took the trail back to the site of the girls in Evansdale. That reminds me so much of something similar, as far as it's got to be somebody local that knew exactly where they were going when they took those girls and marched those girls back there, or carried those girls back there, whatever the whatever the scenario. Yeah. I don't know if we know. You may
That's
know.
probably one of the most haunting images you'll ever see, is that location in the middle of winter with no foliage. And although that's totally different than of what most likely occurred when they were taken back. But in the middle of winter, it is one lonely place out there.
I can't even imagine. I mean, do you think that that's where it happened, or do you think it happened somewhere else and they were taken there? Evansdale. Were
they taken there, and what time frame?
Okay, so they were they were kidnapped. Do you think that their murders happened at that location, or do you think that was a body dump?
No, I think that's where it
happened, where it occurred. So, that is so remote and so desolate back there. It has to be somebody that's
Oh, yes.
local.
Oh,
It just,
absolutely. You think Delphi is hard to find?
yeah.
Seven Bridges is 10 times harder.
Oh, that is just crazy to me. Um, God is always with you today. Asks who turned Libby's phone on at 2:39 a.m. the last ping time. I don't know that anybody turned her phone on.
I don't know what. Yeah, I don't. We may find out more about that later.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, no DNA found on Richard Allen and the girls, right? We don't know that. We don't know what DNA. We know they had DNA evidence. We don't know how complete of a profile, from what I understand, and from what I've always understood since day one, is that they've had a partial DNA profile that could rule people out, but not rule people in.
Yeah.
And that's what they were using it for. I don't know.
And I still think there's probably more DNA.
I do. I mean, I can't imagine, and Steve could speak to this better than me because he's the criminologist, but when you have a crime scene that's outdoors that has to be as violent as what they're saying that this was, because we know they said it was bloody, there's got to be DNA, you guys, and people are going to be, there's many forms of DNA. It's not just blood. There's other bodily fluids, there's hair, there's fibers, there's,
I think if you just looked at my video of me dragging Mrs. Steve um, through the woods, that just in those moments of me moving dead weight, either by armpits or by legs, that through those contacts, there's DNA. It's just whether or not you find it.
yeah, whether or not you get it.
And that's
Exactly.
not even the violent part of it. That's just through the movement, the staging, that there's the potential of this Lacard's principle of the exchange of DNA both ways that can exist. And that's how come I believe it's there. We just they just haven't found it.
Yeah. No, exactly. And Jamie makes a good point that that's why we need Richard Allen to go to trial, because then we will know all the evidence, and that speaks to everything. And I do believe he's gonna more than likely make it to trial. I know there's a lot of people that feel that there's going to be a plea agreement in this case at some point. I don't know if I do. I kind of teeter back and forth with that. It's going to depend a lot on what happens in January with this hearing, on whether or not we get new attorneys or the old attorneys, or a new judge or whatever. I think my feeling on all of that is I just want this case to move forward, and I'm tired of that drama. So whatever needs to happen to get the ship righted and faced back down the right direction for justice is what I'm advocating for. If that means that Judge Gull goes away, we get a new judge, whatever. I mean, I don't think she's done anything horribly wrong, in my opinion. That's just me. Somebody wants to know is God is always with you today. Where proof 3 went into 36-degree water at 3 feet deep, water cubic was about 600 cubic feet. And wouldn't hypothermia play a role? Well, yeah. I mean, it got really cold that night. I'm in Illinois. I remember the day. I remember the weather. Our weather here is very, very, very similar because I'm directly west of Delphi. Absolutely spot on. I mean, I can get on a highway here and drive straight to Delphi. I don't have to make any turns or anything. I can go straight. So our weather patterns are very, very similar. And it was only in the high 40s that day. honestly, there's been all kinds of stuff about what the temperature was, but it was like 48, 49 degrees, but it got super cold that night. So, my feeling is in February, yes, we have unseasonably warm weather these days in the Midwest, even though Steve doesn't think we do. He thinks it's cold. But it's been we've had some extremely mild winters. This happened to be one, although later in the week in 2017 and later in that week, it did get cold and there was snow. But I will say this. No matter what happened that day, if the girls ran across the creek on their own volition to try and get away, it was cold. It was frigid. That water was cold. And yes, hypothermia would have been an issue. Your clothes get soaking wet. You're cold. Your body temperature drops. There's all kinds of things. Did that play a part in this? I highly doubt it, because it sounds like things happen pretty rapidly otherwise. So I don't think that part played a role because of how they were killed. Stephanie says the fact he did this while his wife was out of town proves he knows right from wrong and that he planned that day.
I mean, yeah, we see that especially with the Long Island serial offender. The same thing. When his wife was out of town, he went out and did some horrible. If that is going to be the case with him,
yeah, exactly.
And you see that these offenders do that. They have to have, they can't. You can't time and time again tell your significant other that I'm going to get a pack of cigarette, and every time you go get a pack of cigarette, someone winds up on the street
dies.
corner. Yeah, eventually, the spouse is going to catch on.
Yeah, exactly. Sean says there may be another arrest in this case, and that will make a lot more confusion for everyone. If it happens, I've said it now for a year and a half. I said it way back right after I started my channel in January of 2022. When they finally do make an arrest in this case, it is going to blow everything apart, because no matter what happened, in my opinion, no matter who it was they arrested, exactly what's happened. Just like Steve said, there's two trains. I knew from my early days on Reddit and from then being here on YouTube that there were a faction of people that absolutely wouldn't let go of their POIs. No matter what, they have a narrative that they absolutely are ingrained in, and it's almost like they have a dog in the fight because they won't let it go, no matter what the evidence is in front of them.
Yeah, if it's Richard Allen, they were absolutely 100% wrong.
Yes.
And so we have to be on the other train.
Yes. So, and God is always with you today says, what if this is pre-planned, a pre-planned group? How would that look? How would that look like? Or what would that look like? I like I said, I have trouble thinking of this as a group, simply because where were those other people and why were they not seen?
Yeah.
I just have an issue with that. I want somebody to explain that one to me. Where's their vehicles? How did they get there? How did they exit? Where did they leave? And why were they not seen? Boston says, Kristen, whomever did this to these sweet little girls, the angels were there as you did this. And I think you knew because you can feel it when they come. So you did this in front of angels. I know what you're getting at, and I agree with you because of how I believe in my faith. I do believe that they were wrapped in the arms of a higher power, and it's a comfort to think of that, but it's still a horrific thing, no matter what. Cop involved, cover up. No, I do not believe that there is any cover up in this case. I don't believe that this case happened because somebody wanted to be elected sheriff. I don't, in other words, I don't believe that Bridge Guy is, has been identified as Richard Allen simply to facilitate an arrest before an election. I know that's going around. I don't believe any of that. Let's see. I think the reason the drones did not find the girls is because of the loss of blood and cold temperatures. Lose blood temp drops, then frigid cold. Yes. To find a body, and Steve can speak to this better than me because of him being the, the CSI. But when you have a drone out there, and they had a heat-seeking drone that night, and the guy came from Lafayette, from what I understand, who was looking but didn't find them. I think that if the amount of blood loss was what we think it is because of how they were killed, it would have been super quick, and that will cause your body temp to just, and then with the outside temperature being the way it is, I think that that could very well be why they did not find them with the heat-seeking drone.
I'm sure the Body Farm has studies on that would show, because there is preset
time frames,
documentation where they go out and they can tell you exactly that in certain temperatures, this is how fast after death that body temps drop, and at what rate, and so I would expect that they've also done it all the way down to 32-degree water. So I'm sure they have that information. I just don't. And at what level would the thermal imaging fail to do so? Is it 1 hour? Is it 4 hours? Which I think it would be extended period. I don't know what time he was up there flying, and I don't even know if he went across them, and how large.
Yeah, I don't know that either. But
and we don't
I
know
do
how
know
much
he was out
insulation.
there.
We don't know how much insulation, such as leaves or other debris, that might have broke up that signature.
Exactly. I believe the guy that did this crime did not use Snapchat, but used the geocache, Sean says. It's very possible. It's absolutely very possible that he was into geocaching. I mean, we don't know at this point in time. As far as I know, there were no canines on the scene. The hounds were called off, but did the local law enforcement have any canines on the scene? I've never heard that there were canines on the scene. Have you looked into the Ellen Greenberg case? I have not. But I will. Did Abby's leaked photo show indicators of wetness on pants? So I guess they're talking about crime scene photos. I haven't seen crime scene photos, so I have absolutely no idea. But I would think that if the girls were wet from being across the creek, that law enforcement would have known that, because I don't believe the clothes would have dried overnight in those temperatures.
Yeah, and there's certain things that, and I know, but I'm not going to deny or confirm either way for the fact that it's something law enforcement might possibly be able to use in the future.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think they'd want you to give that information up. But yes, definitely, Lynn, I will look at that case for sure. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to think about and to talk about with this case. We could talk about it forever and whatever, but there's a lot going on. Like Top Faxx said, every day it seems like there's a new motion and there's a new this. I'm hoping in January that we get the ship righted, as I said before, and we can head on down the road towards
it will be.
Yeah.
The courts are going to correct it. It's not, I mean, there's been, like I said, this isn't anything that hadn't happened before. No matter how many times people scream, this has never occurred. It's occurred.
Oh yeah, it has. This isn't the first trial of this magnitude or of this type in this country. And, there are a lot of cases out there. That's why when you are looking at the filings and they're citing all of these other previous cases, they're citing things that have already happened before, where it's happened before and they've spoke about it. So, bottom line, and what I would like to close with tonight is to just simply say that this case is about Abby and Libby first and foremost. It's about what happened to them and finding justice for them. It's not about me. It's not about behind the crime door. It's not about Steve. It's not about anything. It's all about their justice and their families that are suffering deeply. And the more we talk about the case and keep the case going and in the forefront of their minds while the case is being investigated, I'm all for. But once we get an arrest, people need to step back and let justice take its course. And there's been a lot of that not happening on social media and people inserting themselves into the case after the fact and all kinds of things. And I just want to say that, I've said it before, try to limit your exposure to that kind of stuff, because that's not what true justice is. And it's not why we're here. It's definitely not why I'm here. I just want to bring their story to the forefront and keep it out there. And I want whoever did this to pay for it. It doesn't have to be Richard Allen. Whoever it is, whoever that evidence points to, that's who I want to pay. And in my mind, from what I've seen so far, Richard Allen best fits the bill. And my friend, I absolutely love having you on my show. You're always so fun to have on. And I have to tell you that I love your late nights. I kind of miss them.
I'm telling you, I never expected me or my channel to be where I'm at. Never,
Me either. I didn't expect mine to either. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just, yours is far above mine. And I think,
Oh no,
and
no,
I
no.
think it's, and I think it's because of being in law enforcement, people have been able to really get a perspective of what law enforcement really does and all the things that you guys have to do and go through to investigate these cases. That and finding you have that heart that you have, that you really do want to help the families. And I think that has made just a huge difference. I think that's why I said, I think your channel is going to continue to just grow and grow. And I want to help that, because you need that to continue to do the work that you're doing, to get the equipment, the stuff that you need, your chair. Let's hope to God you get this chair. For those of you that don't know about the chair, if you go to my community page, it's there. I posted it today. There's a photo, but Steve is desperately needing this chair to do some of the work on the case that he's working on. So
yeah, I've got about, I don't know, 4 or 5 cases I'm working on, and some of them are totally behind the scenes. Some of them are becoming out more. But I want to thank everyone for your interest in these families, and because it's a great community that we have. Today I was in absolutely shocked by reaching out, and something that I had looked for 3 or 4 days, that when you take the masses and you bring them all to the same mission, within hours I started getting pictures and of the exact photo. Not all of them were productive. It's that, yes, I have this picture, but it's in Russia. But
you're not going there. We're not letting you.
no, and
You're not
so
letting you go there.
but I knew it was still being made, and then Malaysia, and then Canada, and as the day went on, it got closer and closer, and so finally we're in the continental, and I don't have to cross borders other than state borders, and so hopefully within the next week, I'll have something within 100 miles, I would expect.
Mrs. Depp says, Steve, in light of so many people against law enforcement at times, have you had one of those moments that you arrived at the perfect time and the person just reaches out for your help?
Now, I've had where both I've been fortunate enough to get there, whereas I could have an intervention where the crime didn't get, where you had an innocent, that the crime didn't escalate into something far worse. Been there. And I've been there when justice was served upon those who deserved it. I've been able to get there at that time also. So I've seen both sides of it, and but that's just part of my career. There's a lot of guys out there that are have far better careers than I. I hope I had a great impact. I believe I did, but I work with some absolutely some of the greatest crime fighters that you could ever imagine. And but then I work with some idiots that
You and Faxx are so humble. It's one of the things that I love about both of you. Jamie says, I hope the Reddit groups and content creators leave Richard Allen's next defense team alone. They won't. I mean, I hope so too, but they won't. But yeah, thank you so much for giving me your time tonight and giving us some more insight on this case that continues to baffle so many.
I'm as lost as last year's Easter egg on some of this stuff. So
I know. It's like, what in the heck, and thank you for everybody being here tonight. Steve, tell Mrs. Steve I said hello, and you take care of yourself, and I will talk to you super soon. What's your next adventure?
Well, I've got a lot of work. I'm trying to get this presentation set up for law enforcement on one of the cases in January. Got to get to Texas and trying to get some meetings set up for some major equipment, because like I said, some of the technologies that we're ordering, it takes 3 or 4 months for it to be developed and built. And so next year I expect to put far more miles on myself than I did this year.
Well, awesome. I hope you and I meet up next year. I'm hoping that that's a possibility, because
I keep driving by.
I know, and I wave as you drive by, but I'm like, I want you to stop. So I want to have dinner for you or something. So that's
Absolutely.
my thing. So anyway,
Absolutely.
but take care of
thank
yourself.
You. It was an honor. I appreciate everything that you do, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Y'all guys stay safe out there. See you soon.
Yep. Night. So there you go, guys. Steve from True Crime Web, dear friend of the channel, dear friend of mine, and what a great person to talk to and to bend his ear about all things true crime. I mean, the Delphi case, like I said, we could talk about it and banter back and forth. And yeah, there are so many things that are so upsetting about this case that we all know and understand. But what a nice night. I'm so glad you guys were all here. Faxx, thank you for being here and for interacting. That was great. I know people miss you and respect you and your insights on this case as well. Thank you to everyone who showed up, everyone who helped to support the channel tonight by sponsoring the live stream. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for remaining civil to one another in chat. That's always wonderful to see. And I hope the rest of your week goes well. We are on that downhill slide, guys, to Christmas. And I know people have a lot of things coming up, family and personal time spent with loved ones. And for those who don't, just know that you're in my thoughts and my prayers. So have a great evening, everyone, and I will see you guys next time. Good night.